Hey, I'm Pastor Andrew Ebanks, lead pastor at the Agape Family Worship Center. We pray this message and resource will stir up your affections for Jesus and encourage you in your calling. Use this resource in conjunction with you belonging to a local church that is helping to shape and shepherd you in Jesus Christ. If these resources bless you, would you consider giving back to us here at Agape? You can visit us at agapekman.ky/giving to see how you can do that. Again, we pray this blesses, encourages, and grows you in your love for Jesus Christ.
Good morning, everybody. You're stuck with me. I think I blessed you the last time I was here. But this morning is going to be a bit of revelation, a bit of sounding the alarm, and a bit of opening your eyes to some of the things that's happening around you so that you are not caught off guard. Okay? So, Father God, I thank you for your presence with us. Holy Spirit, I ask you to open our understanding. Lord, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. And Father God, we ask you to shield our minds as you expose the plan of the enemy. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, I know you know this, but I still need to ask. How many of you know that there's a devil? I don't see anybody hand. Anybody knows that there's a devil? How many of you know that he's not omnipotent? He can't read your mind, but he does not like you. You know that? I know that firsthand. And so what we're going to do this morning is we're going to unmask some of his plans to see how he's affecting your life, the life of your brothers and sisters, and to recognize that it is in God that we have our refuge. Okay? And so, in a sense, we've become indifferent to the fact that we have a real enemy, that he's organized. And if, just for a moment, if you'd like to take notes, please, you go ahead, because we're going to have him, some of it on the screen, but some I'd like you to be aware of, okay? And that his little organized minions are walking around the place to keep him informed. Unlike our Father God, who knows everything and is above everything. He doesn't need to be informed, but this guy does. So in our culture, and even across this island, you come across social media points and tips or newspapers, and they're increasing, and they're leading you away from the Word of God. They're leading you away to things that are really not beneficial to your life. And so in 1 Timothy in verse 1, the Spirit expressly said, it's in the Word, that in the latter days some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving and seducing spirits and doctrines of demons. And how many times have you heard somebody who used to come to church, who used to know Jesus, and you listen to them talk and you think, where in the world did you get that teaching from? It's contrary to what the Word of God gets, because they've suddenly become enlightened in their eyes. They've gone away and they've come back and they're enlightened. But enlightened with what? Their method of teaching can't help anybody. Okay? And what it does is causes more confusion. The Bible talks about constantly learning but never ever coming to the saving knowledge of Jesus Christ. So we have to be careful sometimes when we listen to a lot of these people. Where is the source? What is the source of their thinking? So there's an increase in demonic activity. And so the Bible tells us about the enemy of our souls. He calls him that, the enemy of your soul. You have an enemy. And so in Ephesians 6 and verse 12, It says, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, and the rulers of the darkness of this age. It is a real struggle. I don't know if maybe you're not like me, but there are sometimes for the day you just feel heavy and you can't figure out why. And you have to say, Lord, I don't know where this heaviness come from. I can't fix it. And the only way you get rid of it is by spending time in God's presence, because in his presence is fullness of joy. You may not be able to put your finger on it, but you know it's not normal for you, right? This is sometimes how when you know the minions are around, that's how sometimes it operates. And so a biblical scholar, Mr. John Phillips, says, our enemies are not people, so we must stop blaming them. Satan has many uses for people. And when he uses them, boy, can he use them effectively. He uses them to gossip about you. Half the time, they don't know anything about your business, but they can say something that make you feel bad. How many of you have ever been gossiped about? And you wonder, how did you get my information? Why are you calling my name? They have no clue. They just feel they need to talk about you, okay? And so sometimes he sets them up to cheat us. He sets them up to hurt us. He sets them up to even kill us. But our real enemy lurks in the shadows and is unseen, moving people as pawns on a chessboard of time. You ever had some people come into your life and it starts out good, and then halfway through it you wonder, why on earth did you come into my life? What purpose did you serve? Okay, I'm being real, okay? And so as long as we see people as enemies and wrestle against them, we will spend our strength in vain. Now, isn't this true? We focus on the persons and we lose sight of where the battle is fought. And so we go backward in our Christian walk instead of looking at the person and say, you know something? Satan, I see you. You're not getting away with this one today. My mother used to have a saying early morning, let the devil know early that you are off limits so he don't deal with you. And we used to wonder, are you serious? Because as kids, we just thought he was out there and he wouldn't bother us. But as I grew older and I had some encounters, I realized sometimes I'm fighting two battles. Now, here's what he does. He beguiles. He opposes. He hinders. He buffets. In other words, he make you call yourself some names you never would normally call yourself. Like, I'm so stupid. You ever called yourself that? That ain't supposed to come out your mouth. You are God's masterpiece. You are not stupid. Okay? Don't call yourself these names that bring you down. You're partnering with the enemy. Don't lend him your breath to tear you down. Okay? And so he persecutes you, he blasphemes, and then so much more that he does. And then his aim is to devise, diminish, and victimize you. How many times have you felt like a victim walking through life? And then you say, why me? Lord, why this happening to me? You have a real enemy. And that's his job. And when he does his job well, some of us throw our hands up and he goes and have a party. And he said, man, I got through today to this one. You'll find out a few more things about him. He's a deceiver. John 8 and verse 44 says, no truth is in him. And he's a liar. His language is lies. So he doesn't he's deceived the whole world. Only when you have the mind of Christ can you surface and understand the things of God easier, because your mind has been renewed. And you have to keep your mind being renewed, okay, by being in the Word. He deceives by counterfeit. He has never created anything, but he was a good copier. He got the first photocopying machine. He is good at copying. He has no clue how to make. So that's why he tries to tear down and imitate what God has done, okay, which is what he's going to do again in the end. So he was so good at dividing that he caused, listen to this, in heaven, he caused a third of the angels to fall with him. Now, you may say, but infallible beings. But he had a position over them which allowed him to convince them to turn against God. Now look at where they are, in the paradise of paradise. And he was able to do that. His level of influence passes anything we have on earth. And so that's why we have a hard time figuring him out. But he's a master at it. But he cannot overcome God. Let's get this right. He does not overcome God. They're not in the same realm. Okay? He's a created being. And God is eternal, immortal, invisible. Nothing separates us from him. Okay? Now, when the first family came on earth, he instigated the first murder. Cain had no problem with his brother doing what he needed to do until Satan put jealousy in his heart. Cain was doing quite well, playing with his brother from they were kids, growing up. He didn't have anybody else to play with anyway, but this is what he did. He caused not only the murder, the division came after that, and then the pain that came with that. A mother had to watch her son being buried while the other one was sent away. Okay? That is some serious dysfunction. In the early church, he entered into Ananias and Sapphira and divided his loyalty between God and money. Now that's the next God, common God, that we have on the planet. People will quicker work themselves to death for money than come and spend time in God's presence. He's good at it. And I'm telling you no lie, he is good at it. Look how many people here today. And sometimes, yes, I know we have to work. Don't get me wrong. I had to do it a couple of weeks too because it was required of me to do that. But when you see people day in, day out, they have no time for God till they're sick. Have you ever wondered why there are so many churches splitting? And the minute they split and start setting up, they have a problem? That's him at work. He loves disunity. And when you lend him your time, this is what he does. You may say, well, Satan goes to church. Of course he does. He comes to look and see who's weak. He comes to look and see who not really committed. He has a file on every one of us. And the only way to get that file back is through the blood of Jesus. Because Jesus paid the price for your file. And he cleaned it up. So he has an old file. If you have made a commitment to Jesus, the file that Satan has should not be effective over your life. Because Jesus paid it all. Okay? Now, he takes pleasure in dividing people of God. Listen, he spends time studying us Christians. Because he already got everybody else. Those of us who call ourselves Christians and say Jesus is my Lord, he spends time studying you to see how he can trip you up, to see how he can get one over you. Okay? Now, if we could understand that, we'd stop having so much petty differences. I've heard people leave church for foolish things like they put the carpet wrong. I've heard people leave church because the message our pastor preached that day, he was picking on me. Really? Do you know how many other people in church may have come and benefited from the word? Okay? So he sows easily into people who are just open to him. Now, when he gets a hold of your tongue, and he uses the tongue to poison the mind and to poison the atmosphere. He does it in families. He does it in workplaces. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yes. Families, workplaces, marriages, and homes. He is a divider and a destroyer. And in his attempt to destroy the works of God on earth, he will do anything. God made you a promise, he'll try and delay it. If God says to you, I need you to be somewhere a certain time, he will work on how to delay you from getting there so you miss your opportunity. He will dismantle any plan you have to give God glory. And he will demoralize and destroy anything that will keep you together in unity. That is how crafty he is. People can have a mindset. Oh, and we do this every year. How many of you used to make New Year resolutions? I stopped making those. I used to. I don't anymore, because by February, it's gone. And one of my resolutions was, I am going to read through the Bible this year. And I would make a plan, and I would start good Monday evening, wake up, do it. Not for any particular reason to please anybody, but I wanted to be true to the promise I made to myself. I'm going to read through the Bible. Did it Monday, did it Tuesday, did it Wednesday. All of a sudden, Thursday evening, I'm busy. All of a sudden, the phone calls come within the same time that you have allotted to work on that. I am only doing Bible reading during this time. The distractions. Anything to get you away from what God says he wants you to do. And the influence. We have to pray against him every day. Don't give him a leeway. Don't give him a break. The same way he don't give you a break, you attack him the same way with the word of God. Okay? The same way. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Lord, I give you my mind. I give you my heart. Lord, I want to stand for you. Don't make the time go, because every time you turn around, he has a thought coming in your head to distract you. We're unmasking him this morning, okay? We have to pray against him every day of our lives, because he come to deceive, divide, and destroy. Now, those are three powerful words. But guess what? Those are his best tools, because they work. How many times have you had a quarrel with somebody you can't figure out why we quarreling? You can't even figure out how you got there. How did this escalate to a quarrel? That's him working around the scenes. You have families that have not spoken to each other for years because of some foolishness. 20 years ago, I remember when you did this. And it has no relevance. So he has a few strategies. And this is where it gets to the tough stuff. I'm going to tell you how he does it, so that you can recognize when it's him that's working. Because a lot of us are just going through our lives, and he's just boxing us from one end to the next. And we go home and you say, God, what kind of day was this? You're drained, you're tired, and you didn't really accomplish anything throughout your day. You walk through the enemy's kingdom. So, here are a few of his strategies so you can recognize them, okay? Indifference. He's very clever. And so he makes us think that he doesn't really exist. And it's a figment of our imaginations. Even as I am speaking, and if you're listening to me online, some people still don't believe he's real. Because he doesn't show up how you expect him to show up. But he shows up. You ever had a quarrel in your house and you can't figure out why we're shouting at each other? That's him. He's right there. He likes to miscommunicate and misunderstand. And you say, where did that come from? How did this happen? And you can't get it. So here's what he does. It's not only in the movies that these things happen. They happen in real life. Anything but reality. The whole world lies under the sway of the wicked one. In Ephesians 6 and verse 11 to 12, he is against you and me. And when we sit back indifferently and see what's happening around us, we fall into his trap. You say, oh, well, that's not my business. That's them people over there. No, that's a reason for you to pray. Lord, that situation don't look nice. That poor lady has been struggling for so long. She don't need this. Don't say it's not your business. We become victims and not victors. The second one is ignorance. When we are passive to his strategies and ignorant to his devices, and you say, well, no, you ever meet somebody and you try explaining something to them, and they go, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. Don't make no sense to me. I don't want to hear it. No, that's him operating in the level of ignorance to keep that person blind so he can wreck their family, which he does very effectively. Okay? And then the next one is infiltration. We were talking about bringing somebody into your space. When he infiltrates, he uses an opportunity to do evil. He's managed to somehow get into your marriage. He's managed to get into your finances. He's managed to get into your special place with your special friend. Because he's cunning. He studies you. He knows what you would like. And so he will counterfeit somebody to stand there and say, oh, you know, I really wanted to talk to you. I'm your friend. Look at him good first and see what it is about these friends that they want to be your friend. Ask a few questions. What is it about me that make you like me? And they'll step back and say, they can't really say. You keep your guard up and you talk to God about them because you don't know where they're coming from. Okay? So we don't do it on purpose, but we allow things into our lives that we wouldn't normally allow. Don't you know sometimes when something come in and your little knower on the inside says to you, something not right. I call it my red flag. When my red flag goes up, I go, and I don't answer right away. It means I'm thinking. Okay? Proverbs 6 and verse 27, the Bible says, can a man take fire in his bosom and his clothes not be burnt? And you say, what? How is your thought life? When your thought life or your lifestyle choices You start dabbling in some practices. You start looking at some things you wouldn't normally be looking at. He is inveigling and infiltrating his way into your life. So then he can attack you when it's time to sleep, when you're supposed to be getting rest. He's annoying your mind. You can't think about something, you're not getting any answers to it. Okay? Practices like, this one is old, but it's been around since Adam. Horoscope. Do you know that God forbade these things in the Bible? Okay? Fortune telling and wondering how to get people to tell you the future. Your future is in God's hands. No man can tell you what is going on. Anytime that happened, they start dabbling in the other side. And God told Israel, and he tells us as Christians, do not participate with that. That's not going to bring you any fruit. So don't give him the tiniest hold in your life. He sets up shop as quickly as you can blink. All he needs is for you to go, okay, this looks okay. You don't see the danger behind it because he never shows you. Okay? And don't leave any door open or fail to obey the truth of the Lord in your life. Your secret strength is the Word of God. When that is the framework over your mind, he can't just walk in as if you have no lock on the door. Okay? He is cunning. Now, when you choose to obey the Lord, he has a hard time with you. So here's what he does. You know what he did to Eve? Eve knew the word, but he twisted it in such a way that she had to question herself. He said one word, did God say? And cause her to start thinking. Now this lady was living in the presence of God. He would come in the evenings and meet with them and talk with them. How you think Adam got to know all these animals and write them down? He didn't have no encyclopedia. But we know a giraffe is a giraffe, right? And a bear is a bear. And a dog is a dog. Adam was able to give every animal on the earth a name. Now, remember, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. You don't need to fear him. What you need to do is respect him. He has a level of organization and administration. A lot of us would do good finding out how he works. He is not omnipotent. He cannot read your mind unless you open your mouth. Okay? And when you do that, he says, oh, that's what she likes. That's what he likes. Now I know what they want. And you'd be surprised how somebody shows up, oh, I have this for you. And you go, you know I was thinking about this. Of course, he heard. Sometimes you feel like a failure. And you say, Lord, I don't understand why I'm feeling this way. Tell Jesus quick how you feel. You're human. But remember, you have an enemy. Okay? If you fall into sin, and when you fall into sin, because we're human, rush to Jesus first before he has a chance to accuse you, which he does very effectively. Okay? When we were small and we would say something out of our mouths, and my mother would say, excuse me, whose child are you? And we got to catch her. You ever catch yourself real quick? Catch yourself. And know that same way. Once you recognize that it happened, run quick. Say, Lord, I am so sorry that word came out. But it needed to come out, because if it wasn't in there, it wouldn't have come out, right? Jesus has a way of convicting you for goodness to repentance, while Satan brings condemnation, which makes you feel guilty and you walk through hell for a couple of weeks, all because he's sitting on you, because he found out how to manipulate you, because you opened your mouth. Now, the next one, number 4, is intervention. This is one of the ways he does it easily. Sometimes when you go to people and you open your mouth, be careful what you tell them. In the affairs of men, he loves to intervene, especially on a personal level. So he loves to interfere in the lives of Christians mostly. He don't interfere. Everybody else, he says, well, I got them. What you worried about? That's what he did with Job. He came up when everybody was giving their report about the different parts of the earth. And he says, God says, what are you doing here? He says, I'm bored. Everybody else is doing what I want them to do, except him. He says, well, why him? He says, because you have a hedge of protection around his mind, around his property, around his children. Because guess what Job would do every morning? He would come out and pray to God and ask God to help protect his family. Thank God for the blessings. He was thankful. And in case his children did anything to offend the God that he loves, he goes in advance and he prays for them. Okay? So that shield and hedge of protection we just sung, you are my shield, that was what Job was doing. That's a very good thing for each of us to do for our homes. So he likes to intervene in our lives so that we can do his will instead of God's will, because that's what he wants us to do. So he plans for us how to disrupt our lives. And then he sits back and watch us do it ourselves. Now, there's a story told of a subtle meeting of strategies on how to defeat Christians. He was the speaker. There was a meeting of demons. And they were saying, some of us can't get through to some of them because they've been studying us. We can't get through to some of them. We can't make them do what we want us to do. So he says, well, I will make you victorious if you can get them to do a few things. Listen to this. Keep them busy with non-essentials. Tempt them to overspend and go into debt. Make them work longer hours to maintain empty lifestyles. These are the instructions he's given them. Discourage them from family time and from homes so that their homes will disintegrate and that there's no refuge from work. Overstimulate them with TV and computers so they can't hear when God is speaking to them. Fill their coffee tables with magazines so they have no time to read the Bible. Flood their mailboxes with get-rich schemes so that they can chase after material things. Do you see that happening in our world? Put glamorous models on TV and magazine covers to keep their focus on the outward appearance, that they will be dissatisfied with themselves or their wives. How many times have you heard that nonsense? Oh, she had a baby and she lost her shape. How many times have you heard, well, 5 years with this one is a good time, need to change my oil now? You've heard that, right? Or you've seen them hopping from this one to this one and never really achieving anything. That's his plan at work. Make sure couples are too exhausted for physical intimacy that they will be tempted to look elsewhere. emphasize, listen to this, Easter, Santa Claus, the Easter bunny. That way, you divert them from the real meaning of the holidays. The focus for the last 15 or 20 years, when Easter comes, has been what? It's not Jesus. It's money. Involve them in good causes so that they won't have time for eternal causes. Make them self-sufficient, working in their own strength. That way, they'll never know the joy of God's power and depending on Him. This is a plan. How many people you've seen fallen into this plan? I see it constantly. I hear, I'm so busy. I don't have time for this. I don't have time for that. So the meeting concluded. And the gist of it was to make them busy and make them successful. So sometimes being busy means, write this down please, being you under S, Satan's Y yoke. That's the acronym for busy. Because when you are so busy, you get home, you're so exhausted, you actually almost fulfill all the stuff that he has in this meeting. Okay? If he can get us to be so busy that we have no time for God, and at the end of it, we tell ourselves we did something good. I was so busy, I did this. But have you witnessed to anybody about the goodness of God? Did you tell anybody that there's life in Jesus? Did you get to share your testimony with anybody? Okay? And the last one that we were talking about in the previous lineup was intimidation. He loves to intimidate. How many of you know there's a spirit of fear? There's a spirit of fear, but it comes from him. My word tells me God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a power, love, and a sound mind. Okay? And he also tells me no weapon that is formed against me shall prosper. When I understand that and realize my true identity, I got away from fear. When I was little, I used to be a worrywart. And then I discovered who I was and who my Father really is. Turn the page, flip the chart. So intimidation, yes, we hear how big and bad he is. But you don't need to be afraid of him. Because Jesus already beat him up. Jesus already took control over that. Okay? But let me ask you this. What is the opposite of God? If you say Satan, then you're wrong. He is a created being. Please remember that. He's influential, but he's a created being. And his opposite is Michael the archangel. That's who he had to fight with. Anytime you read about an encounter and there's an angel that comes to oppose him, it's always Michael. So he can't be God's opposite. They're not even in the same realm. Because God created him. He's a creature who I refer to as a little minion. But because he's smart and his influence is across the earth, he gives the impression that he's a big guy. We who know God and have Jesus living on the inside of us, he cannot defeat us. So we don't need to live defeated. He simply cannot defeat you. You've asked Jesus into your heart. He's living in your heart. You are not a victim. You are a victor. We need to respect him, but not fear him, because God has given us everything we need to be victorious. Everything. And all of that we bring to the table, He is not free to be in control of the earth. He thinks he is. Bible says the devil walks around like a roaring lion, seeking who he may devour. He's an old lion with no teeth, but he still has a roar. Okay? He cannot go beyond what God allows. And his dependence, for the dependence of victory in our lives. If you open the door to him, he only has as much room as you give him. Okay? 1 John 3:8 says, "For this purpose was the Son of God manifest, to destroy the works of the devil." It's in the word. You have power. You have authority. Okay? So when we bow our knees before him, we give him our lives and we ask for God's forgiveness for our sins. We come, he has a file, for our sins. Now, remember I said earlier that the enemy studies us? He has an old file on you, and he looks over that old file every couple of days because he wants to see where you've gotten weak. But the Bible tells you, in my weakness, he is strong. So every time he comes knocking, let Jesus get the door. Okay? Now, he likes to challenge us. But what we need to do is to join up with Jesus. And so he won't have access to us. Well, what do you mean when you say join up with Jesus? Simple. Start your day with Jesus. Secure your mind. Father, you know all this garbage that's going around. I don't want none of it in my spirit. I don't want any of it in my space. I want to be able to hear you today. Let me declutter. Get rid of all this trash. You've been told about Jesus all your life. Some of you have yet to accept him. But the enemy runs havoc in your life. So when are you going to learn? He will stop you from living a joyous life and will present you with a counterfeit that makes you think this is the way to go. Far from it. God wants us to walk in victory, and he will do anything that he can to prevent us from doing that. Now, when Jesus was on earth, I found this so fascinating. When Jesus was on earth, he did not fully recognize who Jesus was. So he's not omnipotent. What he saw was someone who presented a challenge, and he wanted to go find out who he was. So he turns up after Jesus got baptized. He turns up on the day when he's the weakest, 40 days after fasting. Okay? You know how you feel after you fasted, right? You want food real bad. He turns up on the 40th day and he says, if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. He appeals to his hunger. And what did Jesus do? Say, it is written, man shall not live by bread alone. Strike one. Strike two. He takes him up and shows him all of these things. This I will give you if you bow down and worship me. So, it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord your God, and him only shall you serve. He got hit with the word again, because Jesus had it in him. He was the word. It's just that he could not recognize that. So he's touching another human being, thinking it is an ordinary human being, What a shock. And then he does the last one. He takes him up on a higher mountain. He says, listen, from what I understand, if you throw yourself down, angels will come because your feet must not be hurt. And Jesus looked at him and says, be gone from me. And guess what he does? He doesn't tarry. He leaves him for a season because he's going to go see if I have a file on this guy somewhere in the back of somewhere and nobody told me about him. Who is he? So he went digging and he can't find no file on Jesus. That's what he does to you when he brings a temptation to your path or a thought to your mind or remember something that happened 40 years ago and you're still stewing in the same spot and you haven't moved. He knows how to push it in. He knows. Okay? So be careful what you pick up. It's easy to pick up immorality. It's easy to pick up adultery. Easy to pick up pornography. But not so easy to put it down. There's an old saying that says, sin keeps you longer than you intended to stay. You may have intended to stay one night, 2 days maybe, but it keeps you longer because it starts to play on your mind and it tortures you. You're never free. When it's ready to strike you, then comes condemnation. When you're ready to walk away from it, guess what he's going to say to you? I think you did say you was a Christian. How many times have you heard that? That's how he plays the double-edged sword. He dangles it in front of you, and then when you bite it, he turns around and condemns you for having gone after it. That's how sly he is. Now, the reason he likes to come after Christians is because we are high-value targets. He's already lost us. So he likes to come after you, to torment you, because your ability to resist him is easier than the guy who he already has. Because he knows all their weak points, but he has to wrestle with you. That's why the Bible says, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and power, against the rulers of darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. The high places is where he dwells. Okay? So he has to wrestle and contend with you because you are either constantly in the Word, have a song on your heart, giving praise to God, thanking God from taking you out of some trap, and then he's right at you again, one after the other. He's constant. You have to be constant the same way in the Word, in your worship, in your gratitude, in your thankfulness, in order to overcome him. Okay? We can do it. Jesus did it. He says, it is finished, and he's given us all authority. We can overcome. In studying you, he studies your habits. He studies how to pull you out of safety. Your safety zone is in God. He studies how to get the word out of you. Have you ever wondered sometimes the word's so good in church, by the time you get to the parking lot, you can't remember what it was about? That's him. You try remembering on Wednesday night what Pastor talked about on Sunday. Seriously. If you didn't record it, and some of us call it sometimers, I can't remember what it is. But you ever check the amount of times that happens? He steals the word from you because he knows if it gets in you good enough, you are stronger. His battle is harder. Okay? The zone that God has around you is a powerful zone. And if you have spiritual people or spiritual friends and they're constantly reinforcing what you have learned, your chances of you forgetting and losing it is much less, than when he has somebody who has not been to church in weeks or months. So we have a way of getting through the trials and the tribulation because we have a team of people either praying for you or helping you to get through the situation. Okay? So he studies you. He studies every preacher. He studies every mother, every father. He studies them. He knows all their weaknesses. He studies your instincts, your associations, your friendships, the music you listen to, the movies you watch, and the things you have on your phone. He watches what stimulates her mind, what makes her tick. He has a file on you. But listen to me, he also knows when you get on your knees and you say, Jesus, I am your child. Please come through for me. He knows that too. I marvel at the patience of hell. How the enemy would wait to bait you until he finally gets you from your safety zone. He will work at it for weeks from different angles. How do I get this person to walk away from a time of prayer? How do I get, if you've made up your mind, he has a problem with you. If you have decided, I'm going to stay committed to Jesus, I am not going to bow, he has a problem with you. And he will work over and above just so that he can move you from where God has you. That's how diligent he is. So he knows what flavor to bait the sin with. You know, like when we cook and we season because we know barbecue chicken's supposed to taste a certain way. He flavors the sin to dangle it in front of you, to entice you, to draw you away from the safety zone, just so he can catch you. So be careful what you entertain. Some of the things I see on TV now called entertainment is downright stupidness, but we let it into our homes. Downright madness. Sometimes I'm like, seriously? How did that become an advert? You ever seen some ads sometimes and you wonder, seriously, people spend money to put this on television? And you say, God, how far off have we come? The attitudes towards old people, the attitudes towards single mothers or fathers, or even veterans, they are so foreign to the ways of God. But we allow it into our homes. Now, I need to tell you this. Sin fascinates before it assassinates you. So it draws you away and makes you sit there comfortably, and then it assassinates you. You lose the desire to be part of what God is doing because you feel so completely out of sorts. He has not just adjusted your thought life, he's watered it down because you've spent too much time in his presence. It fascinates before it assassinates you. Okay? Your mind is his target. That's his playground. Lies. How many times have you told yourself, God, I'm such a failure. How could, stop using that word. You are his workmanship created for good works in Christ Jesus. You are God's masterpiece. Stop lending your tongue to the enemy's words and vocabulary, because he has nothing good to say about you. If he can get you to say it, he's won. Change up your vocabulary. Think about what God says about you. Find out what God says and who you are. His purpose is to make you ignorant of God's will. So when we don't read our Bible for a little time, that's when he brings a temptation, because we don't have any scripture to buffet him. We don't have anything to shield him. That's why it's good to memorize scripture. You don't have to have it in front of you. It comes out of you. Okay? So your defense is the inspired word of God. So check your Bibles. Proverbs is amazing. There are some everyday life things you can learn out of Proverbs. And when you apply them to your life, it's amazing how you stand back and say, Lord, I wish I didn't take so long to learn this. I am seeing the difference. Okay? Now let me tell you something. Those of us who are aware that he's around and have had a few experiences with them, let me let you this. Write this down for me. If the devil can't hinder you with difficulties, he will choke you with distractions. Stay wise to his schemes. If the devil cannot hinder you with difficulties, he will choke you with distractions. Stay wise to his scheme. When we were kids growing up, my mother would, I think I shared this the last time, she would call us all together. Sometimes we didn't all make it, and she'd say, don't worry, we cover you, but next time, make sure you're here. And she would pray over us every 31st of December, going into the new year. And she would make this declaration. And we used to wonder why she did it. But looking back now, we realize why. She would say, thank you, Lord, this is my house. I've covered my children. Thank you for your blood. And then she would say, Satan, I don't know what you got planned, but let me give you notice. My house is covered. And she meant it. And throughout the year, trust me, we missed accidents, we missed failures, we missed a bunch of different things. We had no idea the angels were fighting on our behalf because we came out scot-clean. My brothers had accidents and walk away from them. I'm like, how in the world did you get out of that? Because God kept his word. God kept his word. Okay?